here we go, folks. East Liverpool, Ohio. Lou Holtz, Upper Ohio Valley Hall of Fame member. Frank Dawson has every statistic that you would ever need about Larry Bruno. But all we need to tell you is Larry Bruno. And as they say, everybody knows the story. Fill in the blanks. Whether it's here in East Liverpool, his time at Geneva, Monaco, Beaver Falls. I went through the statistics on the radio. Let me just tell you, he's coached WPIL championship teams. He's coached great players. He helped Joe Namath matriculate to Alabama, ended up in the Hall of Fame. He gave a presentation speech. Larry Bruno, Larry Bruno, Larry Bruno. At one time, there wasn't a high school coach anywhere in the country that had a better resume. And whether it was Joe Paterno or Paul Bear Bryant, when they needed to know, they called Larry Bruno. John Manzetti, my brother-in-law, was fortunate enough to play for him. So now we have a chance to talk about the magic of Larry Bruno, and there was a lot of it, right?
Yeah, Coach was quite a guy. All the players had great respect for him. We had like 120 kids that lined up to play in the summer camp when we went out. We did it down obviously like 64, right? So, but everybody wanted to get out there and play for Coach Bruno and the rest of the staff. Coach Harr, Coach Walton, Seacar, and so forth. I mean, there was a lot of great coaches, but they were all about Larry, and Larry just he commanded respect. He didn't demand it, didn't need to. People gave it to him. I mean, he respected everything we did. And like I told you before, when he wanted him to call your name, so you run out in the field, right, whether you're going to get creamed or not. So, and I remember my good buddy Joe Buffini did that one time. He said, I don't want to go out there, but Coach wanted me to go in. So he ran out in the field, in the Reeve Stadium, and did his couple of plays, came back, and we just loved the guy. He was great.
And I've been hearing about Larry Bruno for a long time, and obviously because of the years I was in broadcasting during games and television with high school football, Larry Bruno was always a part of it. But I don't think there may have been coaches with more wins. There may have been more flamboyant coaches who went on to the pros, college, Division I, everything. But I don't think any coach had as much of an effect on athletes and student athletes in a region as much as Larry Bruno did in the Tri-State. Because if you mention his name in East Liverpool today, or you mention it in downtown Beaver Falls today, years after his death, more times than not, they're going to know who he is.
Oh yeah, you can mention it at Geneva College too. I mean, he held a good, strong position there in the hearts of all the people who went to school there, and he was a great tailback there. And he coached a lot of the coaches who were there, and the players that went from Beaver Falls went up there. Besides me, I did play football there, played baseball, but like Jimmy Campbell went there and had that fabulous run back I was telling you about the other night, 102 or 3 yards, and stood for 25 years. Some good players went through Beaver Falls, lots of good players, and a lot of them went through Coach Bruno.
And speaking of Geneva, you look at Geneva now, and obviously they're not grabbing headlines every week. They're not Pitt, and they're not, some of the schools that we really idolize around here, like Penn State being another. But at a time, and it's still good football, and it's still a great place to go and to learn and have faith and do everything you're supposed to do right in the world. And especially if you're a parent, you want your kid to go there because it makes them into a better human being. But at one time, Geneva was pretty good football.
Yeah, they got better when they started recruiting actually some of the local talent. And at one point before I went there, and actually my first year or so, I mean, we had a terrible football team, and it got better as more players came out of Beaver Falls and New Brighton, Aliquippa, and Ambridge, and they started staying in the region, and Geneva started giving them some small scholarships to keep them there because we had so much talent. So Geneva was actually more known for basketball, and our baseball team was really good too. We won the sectional three years to beat Pitt all the time, and we had a really good team. And football got real strong then after the locals started to come in. And I think Coach had a lot to do with that because he wanted the kids to stay close to the family. He wanted them to get a good, high-quality education, respect each other and so forth. And Geneva was a good school for that.
Listen, about Larry Bruno, too, everybody thinks Joe Namath, but guys, obviously, Rich Niabala, Western Beaver, actually has been here with me many times in the past, and people like Butch Ryan and Kevin Scanlon, Dwight Collins, Jerry Moy, sad to say, no longer with us, but a lot of players, much more than Joe Namath, but people always look at that perfect season, the WPIAL Championship, 1960, Joe Namath, number 19, his legacy, they kind of go hand in hand. And to this day, whenever I see him, I think of Larry. But one thing I can say about Joe Namath, you can tell whenever he talks about him, that's an admiration that comes from his soul.
Yeah, he puts Larry Bruno on the same stage as Bear Bryant, right? So they're equals, I think, probably in Joe's mind. And you're right about the coach having a good team, and especially that team. But he followed up with many other good teams. And actually, the year after Joe Namath left, there was another perfect season, 10-0. So they had 10-0, 10-0, 16-61. It was unbelievable.
All right, and East Liverpool and Wellsville and Beaver Local and Oak Glen, that's the football that they play here. And I did games here for 20 years. Steubenville, Big Red, Reno, Suckhotch has a lot of that same swagger to him when you think of what it was like in Beaver Falls in the 60s and what Steubenville is still like to this day. Everybody thinks the good old days were that. And yeah, I'm sure that it could always be better, but you have to admit, when Larry Bruno was at the peak of his coaching career, early 60s, mid 60s, even into the early 70s, on a Friday night at Reeve Stadium, it was the biggest ticket in town, John.
Yeah, it was packed. I lived about 6 blocks from there, so we went down to all the games even after I left. When I went out to Ohio to work, I even came back and went to games, and it was a pleasure to be there. Great stadium, old school, old style, no artificial turf, dirt, mud, a little bit of grass. It was a great place to play football.
Just to kind of get in the mood, I made my way through Beaver Falls, right in front of the high school, and the orange tiger paws and the pennants that line the street. There's still something about it, and as I came to that stop sign, I kind of glanced to my left, and there it is over the hill in a beautifully pristine parking lot and baseball fields directly behind it. That sign with Larry Bruno, the Larry Bruno Athletic Field, and I got to tell you, just such love and respect for this guy. And when I see it, I still think of the times whenever we said hi to one another, he always made you feel like you were the most important person in the room. And that's why I will always have much respect and love for Larry Bruno. Thanks to John Manzetti, Jimmy Joe Savage, always a great job. Tomorrow night, Ted Arnaud, NFL, will be at Legacy Studios. And Jeff Cohen, we take a look at another fan. That's what he is, point of view as far as the Pirates and Pitt football. He's the man behind the Smallman Street Deli. If you happen to be in the Strip, stop by for a corned beef sandwich. I know you will enjoy it. Good night, everybody, from Casa de Emmanuel.